We're going to take a look now at something a few tutorials ahead. And so if you're following along in sequence, you'll see that there are a number of new objects here. It looks a little bit intimidating, but I think you'll find it somewhat intuitive and certainly fun when you see what's going on and how these different pieces come together. What this patch does, essentially, is use the toggle object that we've seen and the metro object we've seen to automate a process of randomized drawing. So over here we have a couple of new objects. These are two different types of random objects. The first, random, just tries to pick a random value between 0 and 999, and you can change the range using this integer box that connects to the right inlet. And now you can see the numbers that are chosen are between 0 and 68. The drunk object is similar to the random object in that it is choosing random values. However, it's doing so in a somewhat of a drunken walk sort of pattern. This middle inlet determines the range. So the first argument here determines range. Initially, it's set in this example between 0 and 999. I've changed it to 190 and now 265 here. So the second inlet here indicates the size of the step, the maximum size of the step. So the steps can be no larger than 6 right now, as it's trying to move between various values between 0 and 264 at the moment. So these are our two random objects that we're working with in this patch. You'll note now that the metro object is attached to a series of random objects with different values. There is some addition and subtraction between some of these objects. They're all packed together, all of these values that have been chosen randomly, and then they are prepended with paint oval. So what that means is that first you have a series of discrete randomly chosen values. You have some math applied to the first 4 of these discrete values. You then pack these together in an array. So here they're discrete, they're completely separate values. Now they're in the form of a list. They've been packed together. And now here you've added the message paint oval to the beginning of the list so that this object down here, which is called an LCD object, is essentially a screen, knows what to do with these numbers because you're essentially sending it the message paint oval and then giving it a bunch of parameters that tells it what types of ovals to paint. Now, how do you know what these values mean? It's very confusing. Well, the way you know, you would hit Command E, you go to the LCD screen, click on the little circle here, and go to Reference. And now what you want to find within Reference is the message paint oval. So we're in the message section of the LCD reference file, and you see paint oval, and this list here tells you the order of the parameters, the order of the list of values that you're going to be sending to the LCD screens. So basically, paint oval, and then the first value tells you the location of the left side of the oval, the top side of the oval, the right side, and then the bottom, and then how much red, green, and blue to mix together to paint the oval that you want. So let's see what that does. Hit Command E and then hit turn the toggle on, and voila, you've got randomized painting of different colors of ovals in different locations. Click the toggle to stop and click clear to start over. So that shows you what you can do with a very small amount of code using the toggle and the metronome that we saw in the last tutorial, and adding in just a few more objects, random, a little bit of math to change the location, pack to pack these values together, the paint oval message, and the LCD object. Over here, what you'll see is that we are doing essentially the same exact automated process as we are doing over here by number 1, the primary difference being that now we are using the drunk object and we are using paint rect as a message rather than paint ovals. It will have a slightly different pattern than this more random pattern, and it will be painting rectangles instead of ovals. Note that it seems a little less completely random. You're both in terms of the location and the colors that are being chosen. There's a bit more of a sense of stumbling around, walking around the same sort of places, and that is essentially the drunken walk motion that the drunk object tries to imitate. So now we've seen how, with a very small amount of code and the option to automate a metronome, the option to automate a process using a toggle and a metronome in combination with randomness and drawing objects, we can very quickly create some somewhat interesting visual patterns to explore. And we'll see how these same principles can be transferred to sound in future segments.